Yes. Okay, so good morning or good day, really and truly, and welcome to the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission on the Archdiocese of Huddersfield Marriage and Family Week 2021. Let's keep making this journey as families. Let's us keep walking together. So today is day 2, and we continue to be very excited for this week's events. Everything from daily prayer and family activities and lots of informative discussions on marriage and family. So don't forget to download or screenshot or whatever it is that will work for you, the schedule that's circling around so you don't miss out. Okay, you guys? Today's theme, just to share with you, is the social media and the family. I want to share the quote with you from Amoris Laetitia, 87. One of the fundamental challenges facing families today is undoubtedly that of raising children, made all the more difficult and complex by today's cultural reality and the powerful influence on the media. So that's the theme for today. But every day this week, from 12 to 12:30, we will actually be having a conversation with the AFLC ministries, right? Our ministries are the Family Life Commission, and all the ministries provided by the Archdiocese and commissions provide such a wealth of support and knowledge, experience, and growth to the community as we journey through this life, this wonderful life of ours. So today's conversation, we're going to be highlighting the separated, divorced, and widowed ministry and single parenting. So just a little bit for you on the separated, divorced ministry. I'll give a little bit of history with it, and then we'll get into our guests and introductions, and we'll get into our nice conversation we have for you today. So the first SDW weekend, the separated, divorced weekend, widowed weekend retreat, was conducted in Tehran by the founders Wilfred and Kay Holder in 1988. And it was adopted from a Canadian program put together and developed with the blessing of the Archbishop of Toronto at that time and the support of the Sisters of St. Joseph and team couples from Marriage Encounter, right? So since the start in 1988, the holders have persevered over many years to ensure these retreats continue annually, usually 3 times a year. The SDW ministry has been part of the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission since its recommissioning in 2003 by Archbishop Edward Gilbert. The weekend retreat has been used to bring healing and closure to those experiencing separation, divorce, or death of a spouse. It also helps participants of the retreat to rediscover themselves in God's plan as it unfolds in their respective new set of circumstances, to deepen their faith and to share the trust that builds authentic family and Christian community. Retreats have deeply touched many participants and given them a new lease of life. Although this retreat is Catholic expression, it is open to, of course, other faiths in the community of Trinidad and Tobago. So that's a little bit about SDW there for you today. So let's get straight into our introductions with our lovely guests. We have Andrea Castani and Joel Sebro today with us. We thank you and welcome you guys to participating with us in this conversation of highlighting the ministries. So before I just give a little synopsis about Andrea. Andrea is recently retired, so she's relaxing now, I hope. A doting mother and grandmother and a widow of some years. And she's very grateful to her friends and family who makes her life, livable and full of purpose, right? And then I have Joel Sebro, a father of 2 boys and 1 daughter. He hails from Mount Hope originally, but moved to Tobago, which I believe you resided up until secondary school, right? So you've been around a bit of back and forth, and you have also been divorced and have experience as a single father as well, right? So again, welcome and thank you guys for participating. So if you don't mind, Joel, I'll go with ladies first today.
No, I have no problem with that. It's a pleasure being here again. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. So Andrea, just getting straight in, tell us, a little bit about your marriage and, your husband, a bit about him.
Well, okay. Afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. And we were both born and bred Catholics, and we met through the charismatic renewal.
Okay.
So our preparation for marriage was, I would say, on the same page. We were on the same page. We so wanted to create an environment that was healthy for our children and faith building, that we created a small community of several other couples who got married around the same time. We had children. We met for a meal once a month, and we discussed our faith. Between all of us, we had about 20 children. That's talking about
Wow.
6 couples, right? Over time, of course. By the end of that first year of marriage, someone invited us into Teams of Our Lady.
Mm-hmm.
And so we began, and it was essentially the same setup. 7 couples, you meet once a month over a meal, and there's a program actually that helps to build your faith, and build your marriage. It is especially created to enhance marriage and family life, essentially, of course. So my husband was the research person. He would, with all our children, he gave them names, and each name had a meaning because he researched everything. He gave talks in the charismatic renewal. So I mean, it was his penchant as well as it was part of the way he worked.
Right.
So yeah, and 3 years into our marriage, after 3 children, he fell ill.
Okay.
And the prognosis was death. And for a young wife in their 20s, it's inconceivable, and almost rude to even suggest it.
Yeah.
So anyway, marriage was, we continued in faith in building our family in with teams, and when we couldn't anymore because he became more or less of an invalid,
Right.
we dropped out of teams, and it was basically no social life, just children, just this.
Mhm.
We always made mass, sick as he was. We made mass every Sunday. All of us bundled up in the car, and the priest would come out, hear his confession if he wanted, and give communion to him right outside the door when he could no longer be taken inside.
Right.
So
Mhm.
the children were, as a family, we were very close. Things may have been difficult. And as I said, God provided, you know, but it didn't, there was no way that my faith was knocked down, you know, but we were just, it was like we were pulled out of the whole realm of the world, and in that little space where, you know, our life, my whole life was just looking after him and the children. And I had actually left my job in the beginning so that I would stay home to look after my children, because I wanted to provide the kind of environment that I wanted for them.
Right. So I'm hearing a lot of support in the beginning, teams, your faith, that you guys journeyed together, what you had to do essentially for your family to uphold the commitment you both had to each other in the marriage and to your faith as well, even in the time of good times and not so great times when he became ill. So what was that experience like for you when he did eventually pass?
He was always held out and held up. I always held him up to my children as their father. He took an active role in imparting the faith to his children. Around the dinner table, he would, you know, speak to them, you know, about their future education, etc. When they were small, we'd pray together. When they were a little older, we'd have night meetings of prayer, etc. Every season would have been celebrated in that way, you know. And we were always close as a family, and we enjoyed each other's company, I believe. We had fun. In spite of it, you know, we didn't lose our sense of humor, though things were hard. The last 9 months, he had to spend away from home because, although being invalid at home for several years, we could no longer look after him because it became a medical issue. So he had to be away. So the last 9 months he spent away, and I would go to visit him every day. By that time I had joined back work, because half of that time he was, he had to stop working, and when he came home from work, I went back out. And you know, the children will get to see him on weekends perhaps, but when he was gone and he was in the hospice, it was like a huge person out. His presence was not there. You missed his presence, you know, because, as I said, I always held him up as their father, and I said, you make daddy proud. He literally is laying down his life for you each day. And I know he would have been praying all along. That's the kind of man he was. And so with his passing, there was, you know, thank God that family really rallied around in the beginning. I was totally sick. I was so sick when he passed. I couldn't even drive myself to the doctor. So, but there, I mean, I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody gives you a you know, a handbook to say, okay, when your husband dies, this is what you'll feel, this is what you'll go, this is what you have to do. And so I had asked this Sister Monique, who is very close to the family, and she said, you know, when before the funeral, the night before, his family had come across too from wherever. And each one took each one of the children and hugged them. And this priest led us in this little session. And they took each one of the children up to the coffin and they said their goodbyes to him. And I think when each person came back to the seat with each of those children, they were blown away by what they experienced. You know, and it was such a beautiful session. It was like a gift for us to have closure.
Yes.
And after dinner that night, everybody just commented how beautiful and who thought of that and how did you know, and it was really a gift from God.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that, you know, of course, you know, with his passing, of course, you know, the loss, and of course you'll miss him, the whole family would. But the closeness to the family too. And then that with Sister Monique, as you said, I believe that was a really good way of coping as well in that moment. You know, everybody getting a chance to say something, say their final, right? And what you said ended up being such a beautiful process at the end of the day. And something that really kind of brought you guys maybe that kind of, as you said, that closure. Anything else that you did maybe afterwards to cope and adjust to things?
Well,
about him?
I as I said, I'd gotten very ill, and all the children. So I'd taken them to the doctor, and he pulled me aside right away because he knew us. He had looked after our children from birth, and he himself had lost his wife earlier. And he said, "You get out there, and you meet people, and you do different things because the depression and sickness and death goes up 100% in the surviving spouse." You know, it was just there in the back of my mind. I heard it. And after the funeral and after all, you know, the visitations and food deliveries, etc., I just went into a deep depression. I felt literally as if blood was oozing out of me. That's how it felt, the life leaving my body. Literally, I felt like death. And then, as I said, I mean, God really has to be doing something because somebody somewhere thought of me and said a prayer, because I just like that remembered what this doctor said, and I got up and I just started getting back into life. You know, and that was when that began. Of course, I was away from work for a little bit because after 18 and a half years of our 22 years of marriage, 18 and a half years of him being ill, I was literally burnt out, you know. And I think, you know, friends did help along. And I think if I didn't have a large family to look after, I might have been in a depression for a longer time, but God kept me busy so that over time, you know, not that we ever specifically as a family spoke about it, but we always come together to remember and, you know, honor him like that.
All right. So definitely you kind of hit some of the questions I was going to ask, but I'm hearing, no, that's great. No, I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it how, you know, God continued and you felt, you know, when it clicked, when you needed to hear it in that moment to, you know, get up and go. And as you said, you know, what the doctor said resonated with you in that moment of, I guess, you know, that dark period for you of loss. And then, as you said, you know, I'm hearing it throughout, you know, you've had your friends and your family who definitely supported you guys at this time. And probably, you know, it helped, you know, it takes a village. I think that's such an important thing.
Yes, we were very blessed, and you know, his faith was always strong, and you know, but a thing, he was my strength. You know, he was my strength. He said he loved me, and that was it for me. I didn't need anything else. I can fly after that, you know. And so perhaps that's why, you know, you just threw yourself into this marriage and family. There was no going back. There was nothing else you wanted to do. And when he was ill, though, anytime he needed something and I prayed for it, God would always provide, you know. So there wasn't, you know, but God had to literally take him from my hands. I had to unclutch because he was, you know, we had nurses stay with him at a time and they would look upon him as just this decrepit person,
right,
invalid, and I had to tell them, no, this is my husband and this is the children's father, and you have to look after him properly, because if he were in his full strength, he would never keep himself in any other way but well groomed, you know. So that was part of that.
Right. So as I start to kind of close you up in a sense in regards to your aspect of your experience, any words of wisdom or anything that you would like to impart to those, you know, who have lost their spouse, their significant other, and actually, you know, experiencing the same things that you're saying, that isolation, that, you know, that depression, as you said, that I'm missing you so much. Anything you would like to say that you know you would have probably liked to hear yourself even at that time?
No, no, I don't think I can. I think everybody's experience is so personal. And there was even this suggestion that people would say, wouldn't you prefer that he died? And I couldn't, because God had to take me to a place of reaching sheer exhaustion for me to let go. Because when I would go and see him every day before work, and then I was feeling so unwell that I said, you know, I said, God, I don't have anything more to give. And I said my goodbyes to him there. And it was shortly before that my brother-in-law had said, you know, he's only waiting on your permission, you know. And it was that same week that he passed. I'd gotten into an accident that morning. And a few seconds later, my sister-in-law calls to say, you know, he's very ill, come down. I had to go to the police station, but I knew in my heart, I felt like his life was given up for mine, because I'd gotten in an accident where I didn't, you know, I don't know what it was, you know, it was just, I didn't know what was going on. And so I said my goodbyes to him and told him that I will continue to raise the children as we had started and as we had planned. That's just my experience, but don't tell me that I didn't want to hear anyone to say, don't you think he should die? I know now I can look back and see how selfish it must have been, but your whole heart is invested in that. And in him. And I always knew that he was someone so special. He may have seen gruffed on the outside, but as my brother-in-law told me before we got married, so he has a very tender heart. And when someone entrusts that to you, you're very careful not to let that fall. You know, so it was with a tenderness that I held on. And also there was that protection and sense of security. As invalid as he was, you know, he was still husband to me. Right. So I don't have anything for anybody to say. That's all right. You don't have anything to say to anybody.
I think your experience, even as you said, each person is unique and each experience will be different. I think just you sharing your experience is something still very important and valuable to others. So I thank you very much for sharing with us this morning.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We don't go anywhere yet. Okay. Just switching gears, we do have our other guests as well who will also talk about a different aspect in regards to what we do in the ministry and separated, divorce, and widows. So as I said before, Joel is divorced, and he has been a single father at some point, right?
Yeah.
So tell us, Joel, about your experience when the marriage came to the end, and what were your thoughts and feelings, and what was just your experience when that occurred, that event occurred?
Well, I would say when it came to end, it have came to end actually in 2017. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Married from 2013. Um, my feelings at that point in time was that I know that I had given my best. I had tried, with the family itself at that point in time, and I had spoken to the Lord, about the decision I was going to make. I sat there for a little while, would have felt sad at that time, but
Mm-hmm.
after speaking with the Lord and being guided, I would say that up to this point in time, things happen for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's just a learning experience sometimes that we go through in life, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And how did you cope? You said I'm hearing that you did a lot of reflection, you did a lot of speaking with the Lord. So how did you cope at this point?
Well, coping for me would have been tough for, especially when I had to see about, my second son Jason, because I would have had to, see about him at that time. He was in preschool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do like the drop to school in the morning, then
Mm-hmm.
pick back up at lunchtime, drop him
Mm-hmm.
off at the afternoon daycare, then go
Mm-hmm.
back to work. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of up and down at that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the preschool period,
Right.
right? Where and then to the primary school, had a little ease where I just had to drop them off and drop them off only, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually had someone, a driver, pick him up in the afternoon and just drop him by my grandmother in Mount Hope, where he would await me now until I
Mm-hmm.
finish work afterwards. So
Okay.
instead of that up and down as before, I had a little break to kind of spend a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more time in work and that kind of stuff. But I still had to actually on the afternoon now when I come home, go through his books,
Right.
homework and that kind of stuff. So it had its challenges. It still have it up
Right.
to with the pandemic going on now and
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Mhm. Okay, so I hear you said the Lord, so I'm assuming that faith was still a very big part for you, maybe in the coping as well. So how did it help you move forward, I suppose, for better words?
I would say what happened actually was that I was always part of the church,
Mhm.
it had the little falling off part.
Mhm.
But when it happened, I actually was in church on Sunday and they said they're doing a Life in the Spirit seminar. And I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? This has been a long time I haven't done one. So I
Mhm.
actually did it, and the presiding priest at the time was Father Khan, who did
Mhm.
it. And after the Life in the Spirit seminar had ended, um, Father Derek Anton, who is the parish priest of Shogunas,
Mhm.
right? He said, well, we have a men's group that worship every Wednesday from
Mhm.
6:30 at the Max Murphy Hall in
Mhm.
Shogunas. And I said, I kind of I'm interested into this,
Mhm.
so I actually went. And from since that time then to
Mhm.
now, I am part of the Shogunas Men's
So,
Ministry.
mhm.
And up to this day, always, with fellowship and every
Right.
Wednesday. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that has been my help.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Okay. And how did that really help to kind of keep you and maintain you on your journey? Like any, activities, advice, anything in particular, anything
Yeah.
specific, any ministry?
Well, actually, in the ministry, it helped broaden my love for the Lord even more, even understanding, because we go through the gospel for the Sunday coming up, because we meet on a Wednesday.
Mhm.
So and every year they used to have like used to be like a men's conference at Presentations College. So, and they had different speakers. So different things, different topics they would touch on. I started to learn a little bit more about even, the male aspect, the masculinity, you
Right.
know. But what also helped me even before that also too was that my work actually, where I work at my sister's head office, they actually had a male empowerment program.
Okay.
And, and I actually just saw it and I was like, I said, I like the topics that they have and I was actually interested. So
Mhm.
all of that too helped into my development, understanding myself more,
Right.
understanding my role, and stuff.
Okay, so you had work family, church
Yeah,
family, and how
yeah.
about maybe just your actual family? How did they support you as well during that time and throughout?
Well, I would say my family supported me. I will always give thanks to my grandmother, who I grew up with from since
Mhm.
the age of 2.
Mhm.
At that point in time, also too, my mom and even my bigger sister was there at that point in time.
Mhm.
And up to present now, I would say huge thanks to even because I'm in a relationship now, and
Right.
I would say special thanks to even my girlfriend now that is giving me that support. She's there with me, you
Mhm.
know. Even though that my son is not even hers biologically, but she's there. She's supportive. She
Mhm.
sometimes if you know I can't see about certain situations, she will step in. Where
Mhm.
there's concern, and her mom will also give me that spiritual guidance because her
Right.
mom is also part of
Mhm.
church and all that stuff also too.
Right. So definitely from the time you always had that support, right, wrong, it seems, right, wrong, work, family, friends, personal, your own family, your girlfriend now as well.
Yeah.
So how has that support, um, I'm assuming that support help you even manage as a single parent at times?
That support, I would say, it has helped greatly during the pandemic because it has been
Mhm.
very, very tough in the pandemic
Right.
because my son is the type of child that somebody has to be close to him.
Person.
He has to monitor him.
Mhm.
So I had to actually, get that support,
Mhm.
to actually when the day comes, somebody to kind of and my girlfriend again, she came up and they helped for was actually second term of this
Right.
year, and got they got him to actually come up, and then after he went to one of my cousins and them,
Mhm.
so again, family and
Yeah.
support, and thankful for that because it have some people they don't actually have anybody to, especially in
Right.
this pandemic. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. All right, so as I come to the last question of the conversation, because we have to wrap up now,
Mhm.
what lessons have you learned or continue to learn, especially as a father?
I would say it doesn't have a Bible. The parenting of fatherhood or anything of the sort. It's like you would say on the job training. It's
Yes,
on the job parenting.
right.
And it's every day learning something new. You
Mhm.
even learning, even the children you learning new tricks. You're like,
Yes.
I need to counteract something that it now did. I need to put something in
Mhm.
place.
Right.
So I would say it's on the job.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Yes.
on the go parenting. Sorry, you
Right.
know. So that's
So similar to Andrea, when she said, there's no really handbook that
yeah.
tells us exactly what to do all the time for every situation and every little thing. But I thank you for sharing your experience. As we come to a close, I thank you again, Andrea and Joel, for sharing with us your experience. I thank you, the audience, for joining us as well. And if you are interested in finding out more information on the Separated Divorce Widow Ministry in particular, please check our website at aflcrc.org, or you could just contact us which you could find on social media as well. So don't forget this evening, guys, we have another panel discussion from 6 to 7 p.m. where we're actually really going to focus on the impact of media on families and the need for media education. So tune in live on Facebook and I believe on TCN as well. So don't miss this out. We have some great families ahead for this evening. And as I said, there's lots of events and discussions. You guys get the schedule, keep it up. We have lots of things in store for you. Today is only day 2. We still have a few days to go until the Feast of Anna and Joachim on Monday, July 26th. So thank you again, Andrea and Joel, from the bottom of our heart, bottom of my heart, for participating today. And
Thank
everyone,
you.
great. Stay
It's
safe,
a pleasure.
everyone. No problem. Stay safe and stay blessed with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you. God bless.
Bye. God
Bye.
bless.